I'm not going to back off the fact that I've said it a number of times. I'm getting older, and that's just all there is to it. I've got 10 years on a lot of the folks who are doing podcasting, and so I'm kind of working at a disadvantage. But one of the things that I will say is, as a parent, you watch as your children go through this process of grand dreams that they have when they're young. And I remember myself doing the same thing. I had these grand dreams when I was younger too. The problem is, a lot of times those grand dreams are at least not feasible in the sense that you're looking at them today. One of the things that I think people thought about some time ago and had grand dreams over was this idea of electric cars, right? People have been talking about this idea for a very long time, and quite frankly, it's been a whole lot longer than I think a lot of people are aware of, that they've been discussing this, and it's now sort of becoming, you could argue, sort of feasible to do that whole electric car concept. And that's what I want to talk about today on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt, and today is Thursday, the 9th of December of 2021. Welcome to everyone who's here on Rumble, on the podcast, on YouTube. Remember, Rumble is my preferred platform. And again, today's subject, we're going to talk about electric cars, and I'm going to run through my notes really quick. And I could have gone on quite a while on my notes. I stopped short because I didn't want to take up all the time. I wanted to have some time to do some discussion afterwards. But let me go ahead and talk about sort of what came to my mind when I thought about this idea of electric cars. And it's an important concept to me, and it's something that I've been meaning to do a video on for a while now. My first car was an AMC Gremlin, not even sure the year model. It would have been before the 80s. It would have been probably a 70s model car of some time. It was a great car. It had a manual transmission, 5 on the floor with a granny low. You could start it and first pop the clutch, and it wouldn't die. It would just creep along. And, you'd have to really work to make it die. And it wouldn't jerk. It wouldn't do any of that. It was a 6-cylinder vehicle, and surprisingly, it was heavy. These days, most vehicles have much better fuel economy. That old vehicle also put out a huge amount of pollution by comparison to almost all, even old, 10 years or more, sleds on the highway today. Even then, it didn't belch smoke like the semi-trucks of my childhood. The point here is, we've been working to reduce pollution for all of my life. The United States in particular. I can't, well, and to some degree Australia, a little bit less so, but they've been, for most of my life, working pretty hard at that process. From everything I'm seeing, we've done a pretty darn fine job. So, when people talk about the terrible air in places like the U.S., I have to wonder if they realize how very far we've come in literally less than 50 years. Does that mean we don't need to move in even better directions? Within reason, and that's a very important consideration, of course we should. That said, we're in nothing like an emergent position as far as I can tell at this point. In fact, almost all of the dire predictions concerning the world falling apart, even if you consider the Chinese and Indian tendencies towards, quote, dirty energy, end of quote, have not only failed to materialize, but have done so horribly badly. That is to say, they really, really haven't even come close. Put another way, most such prognostications haven't even come close to reality. So I say the same thing twice because I had it in my notes and I should have realized that. That's my fault. But anyway, you get the idea, right? Then there's the other side of that same discussion. It involves people, people like, I should say, our sitting transportation secretary talking about how everything would be better in terms of folks having to pay more for gas if folks would just all buy electric cars. I'm not trying to get onto him. I just think that it's funny that he is where he is, and I want to talk about why I have issues with that. The more I think about that idea, the more things I find that show folks like that haven't thought about what they're saying. To begin with, there's no way enough battery or even hybrid vehicles could be produced to replace the gasoline burners out there. Additional to this, imagine telling someone like me driving a 15-year-old plus vehicle because I cannot afford a newer one. and I'm not nearly as poor as many folks, he needs to go and buy an even relatively new hybrid or fully electric car. Do you not understand the major increase in expense that would add to our already overburdened wallets? All of that considered, we need to ask a couple of other questions. One, whence comes the energy? And I'll explain that in a minute. Two, what about the cost? And I want to make sure that I don't ignore an important aspect of that. That would be infrastructure. Want to know why I'm not supportive of electric hybrid vehicles? Why I'm not highly supportive of them? Because I'm supportive of them to some degree. If I haven't yet given you enough to think about, listen to the rest of the podcast. Okay, look. To begin with, electric vehicles are horribly expensive. Anybody who's bought one knows this. And that means that they're putting out huge amounts of money to try and live with that electric vehicle. Ask anybody who owns a Tesla, but you know what? Ask anybody who owns one of the Toyota, even hybrids, how expensive those vehicles are. Yeah, they save you gas money. But it takes a long time for you to recoup the money that you have to put into that vehicle. And in the meantime, you're paying every month for that vehicle to be on the road. Okay? For electric vehicles, you can drive it only so much, and then you've got to stop and charge it. Okay, maybe you can get 300 miles out of it, but if you've got to do 370 and you can only do 300, well, you're out of luck. Okay? The hybrids augment that by making it possible for them to run various kinds of fuel. That's great. Okay? But the point is, there's not only that cost, but there's infrastructure. You've got to build charging stations. You've got to have charging at your house. If you go to visit a friend, you've got to have charging available to you there. You've got to get yourself back and forth to wherever the thing is being charged. If the people who you go to visit don't have charging stations, and the likelihood is they won't, okay? There's so many things that are involved in this process, you know, and you have to deal with all of that. And then on top of that, there's the infrastructure for building the cars and the horrible expense, both monetarily and environmentally, when it comes to producing, say, for example, the batteries for those vehicles, which is what makes them different than anything else. Again, remember that you also would have to build sufficient infrastructure to replace the existing gas guzzlers out there, and I promise you that we're nowhere near that place to this point in time. The second thing that I want to discuss, and I'm running out of time, I knew that I would because this subject is kind of near and dear to me, and I really think people need to understand it, is where's that energy coming from? You've got a charging station somewhere. Somebody produces the electricity that is coming to you, and you can pretty much bet they're using some kind of fossil fuel plant. They're not able to produce through wind or solar at this point the energy that's necessary to make that car run. They just can't. All right, so it's almost certain that that's generated with fossil fuel. And I don't see a way around this. Somebody with electrical experience might be able to tell me that I'm wrong, but you've also got to get that energy to the place where the charging station is so that the person can use it. When I go to a gas station, I drive to the gas station and I fill my tank. Now, to be fair, you have to have vehicles driving around with that fuel in them that take it to the gas station so that I'm able to use it. That is true. That's a fair statement. But the point is, you don't get around that by producing electrical energy. You just change the way that energy is transmitted. And that's not necessarily cheap either, besides that you're using fossil fuels to produce it in the first place. Okay, I'm running out of time. I think by now you probably should have some pretty good reasons to really question whether electric vehicles are a great idea, whether even hybrid vehicles are such a wonderful thing. And I'm hoping that you'll maybe start thinking about people who maybe aren't quite so fond of that sort of thing as many others. I need to go ahead and wrap up. This is the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt, and today is Thursday, the 9th of December of 2021. I'm working towards that weekend very quickly. Tomorrow will be Friday, the 10th of December of 2021. That will be the beginning of the Sabbath at sundown for those people who, again, celebrate or hold the Sabbath. Thank you for everyone who's been here on Rumble, on the podcast, and on YouTube. Almost with welcome again there. Remember that Rumble is my preferred platform. You can give me a boxing glove or a plus on Rumble to tell me that I'm doing an okay job in what I'm doing. You can give me a minus on Rumble if you want to show me that I'm not doing so well. If you're watching me on YouTube, of course, you can give me a thumbs up or a like if you enjoy what I'm doing or think that it's worth your time. On the other hand, you can give me a thumbs down or a dislike if you want to show me that I need to do some work. Remember that if I put the content out there on whatever platform I put it out there on, you can give me some comments so that I can read and understand what it is that you have to say that maybe disagrees or that you like my content or whatever it happens to be, right? So keep that in mind. The subject for today has been electric cars. Tomorrow we're going to talk on the subject of silver bullets, and this is one that I think a lot of people are used to hearing that used one way, but they're also used to hearing it used another, and it's the one that I'm going to talk about tomorrow, and it is a good fix for things as opposed to fixing something bad with a silver bullet like killing the old werewolf, right? Okay, I need to go ahead, as I say, and wrap up. I hope you're having a good day today and that everything is going well for you. Hope that you continue to do well as we move, inch ever closer to that weekend. And hopefully we will see you again on Friday's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Thursday, the 9th of December of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S, .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.